Hey, it's John Strohmeyer. Welcome back to 5-Star Counsel. We are talking about the difference between the client journey and client touch points this week. But before we get into that, why are you here? What are you listening to me for? I'm John Strohmeyer. I'm currently a tax and estate planning attorney in Houston, Texas. But before I went to law school, after college, before law school, I had my first year working for the Four Seasons hotels. I am now sharing everything that I learned there about delivering great client service so that you can help get off the client roller coaster with your client service roller coaster with your firm, make things a little more planned out, better service so that you can really stop providing random acts of service to your clients and really deliver in a way that clients will rave about your firm. You didn't get into this to really just be ground down by client requests all the time. We want to make sure that it's easy and simple as possible for you to deliver services to your clients. We also want to make sure that your clients enjoy the experience they get. So we've talked before about how client service is not the same thing as client experience. Client experience is really what clients receive from our business, and client service really is what we're doing to deliver it. How are we delivering our physical and technical products? So there are previous episodes where we can go into this more. We're going to leave that for now, but really just keep in mind, experience is important. I'm focused on client service, which is what the business does. It's not just what the client sees. So there's more to what the business is doing to deliver for clients than just what is happening and what is being experienced by the clients. So why are we doing this? The problem is that there are lots of articles and thought pieces about what client service means and how we should do it. Most of them end up coming off as listicles with no real underlying theory to all of this. We end up then chasing companies like Disney, Four Seasons, and Ritz-Carlton, and Zappos, trying to hold them up as these are the examples we should be following. We shouldn't. Why? Those companies are there to provide experience. People will spend their free time and free money to go to Disney, go to Four Seasons, go to the Ritz-Carlton. Why? Those are diversions. That's entertainment. It's pampering. It's fun. When they come to us as lawyers or even as doctors, CPAs, engineers, whatever it is, they're not coming to us to spend a free Saturday. They're coming to us because they have a problem that they need resolved, whether it's get me out of jail, get me divorced, get this adoption run through, or plan my estate. Whatever it is, they're coming to us because there's a situation that needs to be resolved. So we're here to make sure that we are resolving those problems. And because of that, we don't need to get diverted or focused onto how all of our service should be this exemplary, over-the-top experience. It sends us down the rabbit hole, chasing things that I call red herring products. These red herrings are distractions. They don't help the client, but they are something we can spend money on. Sure, anybody can go swipe their Amex and buy whatever it takes to get a better drink menu or an omelet menu or a ball pit at your law firm to distract the kids. But if it doesn't help the clients move the needle on their problem, it's not helping. It's a distraction, and you need to make sure you're minimizing those. So we want to stop taking advice just because Disney does it, just because Four Seasons does it, just because Zappos does it. It doesn't make sense for us to follow their examples. The story of Joshi from Ritz-Carlton, it's not a bad story, but it doesn't happen every day there, and we can't expect to follow what Ritz-Carlton does in our firms. So here's what we're looking at. I spent my time at the Four Seasons. I learned a lot of things, and it taught me a lot of ways to look how service is run and what we should be looking at. So when I go to restaurants, I notice how the salt and pepper shakers are arranged. It's weird, I know, but I notice things like that, and I notice when the servers are moving them. I notice if people actually look me in the eye or they're looking somewhere else around me. These little things that help define what better service is, that's what I'm going to help you understand and what we're going to be looking for. So we're going to focus on those tiny improvements to help you deliver better service so you're focusing more on your clients. We're not going to focus on those red herring over the top wow experiences because they don't matter. Clients don't come to us for us. Some of the research says clients don't even really care. We're looking to focus on what we can do so that we can deliver better things for our clients. So today we're talking about going beyond the client journey. And what does that mean? It means we need to think about not just the journey, which is important, but we're going to be talking about client touch points, because these are the individual interactions clients have with our company, our product, our brand, whatever it is. These are the more minute individual interactions. The journey everybody talks about, and it's important. We have to put both of these things in our head. You'll want to think about the client journey as the overall start to finish, everything, every stage that clients go through as they work with us to get legal services. Those touch points, some of these will be scripted, some of them won't be, but overall, we're thinking about these are the individual interactions, whether it's a phone call or an email, thinking about how we structure and script those so that clients get a unique and, customized to the extent that it makes sense for our firm, just a great experience from us. How can we improve our service so that clients experience from those individual touch points as they travel along their journey with us? How do we make those better? So again, as a way to start, service is how easily a business delivers. That's what we're going to be thinking about. Those red herring products, they're not what clients are asking for. They are what sometimes you'll get distracted with and think, well, if I have the drink menu or the omelet menu or whatever else that the clients didn't want or ask for, maybe I can wow them into thinking this is where I need to be. And long term, I actually just got quoted in Clio's updated Trends for 2021 article. What's the future of legal tech? Well, in my mind, it's not just the future of legal tech. It's how are humans going to integrate the high-tech services that are offered out there? How are they going to integrate those with the human-delivered high-touch services that clients do still want? It's not going to be one or the other. If you're all tech, you're going to end up looking like a logistics company like Amazon or Walmart. There's nothing wrong with it, but you don't think of high client service from Amazon. Why? Well, imagine when something goes wrong at Amazon. If something goes wrong with an order there, and it does happen from time to time, you've got to fight to get some human on the line. It takes time. They've tried to make it as easy as possible, and it doesn't mean that it can't happen, but it does mean that it's something that to be looking out for. But Amazon wouldn't even say that they're a product company. They're a logistics company. Their job is to get stuff from place one to you, the buyer. They're making it as easy as possible for you to pick up stuff from people, from other vendors. So we're going to keep thinking about it that way. We don't want to go all the way through and think about it as just high tech all the way. In the same way, we can't be high touch all the way. There's too much good technology out there that we can be using. Things like Zapier, things like Text Expander, and all sorts of other products that are out there to make our lives easier, that when we come in and use them, it speeds up what happens. And ultimately, that's what clients are looking for, is how can we be faster about this? How can we make it easier for them? How can we solve their problems faster? So going all the way back, the basic rule of business, the basic transaction, business sells a product to clients, and that product is what they're paying for, but they're getting the experience. The client's going to receive that experience from the business. The business has a few ways of putting this together. And, it starts with marketing. And if we think about this as the client journey, well, it starts with marketing. The client sees something, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, a printed leaflet, a mailer, somewhere, your website. Clients are starting with some sort of one-way communication from you, the business. They're receiving something that says, oh, this business exists, and maybe they have a problem that can be solved by this business. So when we're looking and thinking about marketing, it's all about identifying who our right clients are, who we are and what we do, and finally, what problems can we solve for them. That first step of the journey is really, how do we fit together and should we fit together? If I as a lawyer make it unclear what sort of law I do, I'm not making it easy on the clients. It should be clear I'm just here for planning or litigation, whatever it is. Your website should leave shouldn't leave that open to interpretation. You're here to do this on these types of problems. Next, we move into the sales phase. And sales can be called many different things: onboarding, client retention, engagement. The point is, we go from having a one-way conversation where we're just telling potential clients, this is who we are, this is what we do, to actually having a conversation with the client to say, this is what we do, let's figure out how it makes sense for us to work together. Because when we do that, what we're doing is we're actually taking that into a two-way conversation. The second stage of the journey, well, there are all sorts of things we can do here. This is where we're talking, interactive phone calls, chatbots, having meetings, whether it's Zoom or in person, whatever that looks like. This is what we're going to be doing where we're engaging the clients. Finally, every business has the third broad phase of their client journey. We're not just selling the product, but we're actually delivering on what we need to do. And so clients, this is where they get what they want from us. What did we offer to them? How can we deliver it to them? So in this phase, this is where we can break down the client journey even more. And it's saying, we've got the initial discovery, due diligence, drafting documents, moving on to, if you're in litigation, discovery, certain motions, going to court, final judgment, all the steps that client would go through once they've been engaged. And then finally, there's going to be some aftercare. We don't want to just drop off and say, look, we've done our job. We have finished the case for you. We don't ever need to think about it. We want clients to remember us. Whether or not they still need us to do things, we still want them to remember who it was that did the work for them. Because if we did a good job, they're going to want to remember who we are, because it'll eventually, that same problem will come up for somebody else that they know. And you want to make sure that they know, oh yeah, that was right. That was Smith & Jones law firm that helped me adopt my child, instead of just saying, oh golly, who were those guys? I can't even remember. I'm sure anybody is fine. As long as you're still taking care of them, what you want to do is make sure that you've, even if they're not still paying you, you've got to have that ongoing, constant service delivery to them. And it doesn't mean that you're doing something on a one-by-one basis. It could be employing technology to make sure that, you're sending out weekly or bi-weekly or monthly newsletters to all of your former clients to just keep them in the loop, to remind them that you still exist. It's those sort of things that we want to be thinking about as part of the client journey. Again, broad steps is what the client journey is. But when we think about client experience, that journey is only part of it. We've got two other things to think about. One of them, the client journey, as I mentioned, is our steps along the way. The environment and how it's delivered. It's what, as part of service, I've just always been calling the delivery component of service. How are we delivering? What does it look like? And in the middle, we're thinking about things like touch points and interactions. So this is any time a client has some interaction with you. And in many cases, we're not going to be able to list out every time they're going to have a touch point with us. We can list out certain ones that we know will happen. For my estate planning practice, we know I'm going to have an initial meeting with clients where we're going to talk about their planning, go through all of their questions, make sure they've got all the information, and come up with what a plan looks like for them. That's one touch point. That's a meeting. We can also think about, well, they're going to probably call me. That's a touch point. We don't know how many times they'll call, but they will. We're going to think about, well, they're going to email me. We're going to have to send them documents. We're going to have to eventually send draft documents to them, or even send them revisions, and finally make sure that they're ready to sign. So as we look at it, these touch points can be broken down into, think about them as any type of interaction. And the Disney Institute puts this out as 3 ways of categorizing these touch points. You can think about it as interactions with people. You can think about it as interactions with a place, and you can think about it as interactions with some sort of process. So in people, this is just any sort of communication between your client and anybody who works for you. So when we think about this, how can we know all of these touch points? We can't. There's no way we're going to be able to script out every single touch point that a client is going to have with our staff. Now, sure, we know we're going to have some of them. Once they get engaged, we're going to have a touch point of sending an email or a phone call. Again, sending an email or a phone call to a client saying, hey, you've signed your engagement letter. We've received your retainer. I'm handing you off from intake person to paralegal. Paralegal is now your point of contact. We know that's going to happen. Well, start thinking through, if we know this is a touch point, what needs to happen? What do we want to happen out of this engagement, or out of this one touch point? What does the client want? And what can we do to make this easier? So again, coming back, clients are coming to us to move the needle. Each touch point is going to provide a point for us to help them move that needle, or at least see that the needle is being moved for them. How do we deal with that? When we think about processes, well, that can be the engagement process. What does it look like? Each touch point is going to have its own minor goal that will help propel the client along the client journey with us. As we guide them through whatever process to achieve whatever result, we need to know, what are we trying to do? How are we trying to get them there? So those processes, thinking about how many steps are there, how can we make it easier for people? Finally, when we think about places as a touch point, well, sure, this could be the physical places that people come to and see us. What do our meeting rooms look like? What does the office look like? What does reception look like? But it's also going to be places online. If they go to your website, if they go to your Instagram, if they go to your YouTube channel, what do clients see when they get there? And how are they interacting with that? Doesn't mean that all of this is fully within your control. Obviously, on an Instagram or a YouTube, a lot of the website is set up and you don't get much of a choice with it. But you do get a choice in what the content looks like on there. And when we think about it that way, well, how can we make it as easy as possible for people to get what they're looking for? If you think about it in terms of what do you put on Instagram, these are generally going to be, for law firms, advertising and content that is meant to show that we know what we're doing, we know who our clients are, and we know what problems we solve. So how can we convey that we're an expert? Going back to our chat with Mike Whalen a few weeks ago, how do we make sure that people know what we do? We act like an expert, and we put out content that shows that we know what we're doing. And so when we go to these places, thinking about where in the client journey is a person, what are they looking for, and how can we make it easy for them to find that? And that's kind of it. So we still have a bit more to kind of go through, but ultimately what we're looking to do is make sure everything is as easy as possible. So just kind of wrapping it up, if we want to think about the client journey as the overall map, imagine back to like an Indiana Jones movie where they're doing the travel scenes and they do the sepia tone map. Well, the journey is going to be the red line all the way down. You know that you're going to have to get from point A to point B. The touch points are going to be all the little pieces in between. What did Indy see while he was sitting? May not have seen much if he was sleeping on the plane, but ultimately, if he had opened his eyes, what were all the touch points along the way? Kind of breaking it down into smaller steps along that journey. We don't want to think about it only in terms of the journey as large road signs between point A and point B. It's not just those mile markers. That's what the client journey is getting you to think about. But it's the touch points along the way that we do want to be thinking about, because you have to think about both. You're looking at the forest and you're looking at the trees. With the client journey being the forest, the touch points being the trees, we've got to see what's going to happen. What can we do to start thinking about things for clients and really envisioning what are they looking for as we go through this journey? How are they going to interact with us along those touch points? Because the better we can focus our touch points to minimize those touch points, to reduce the time between those touch points, ultimately it's going to make it easier for clients to get what they want from us. And that's what we're looking for. We want to make this easy for everybody to be involved. And so that's what we're going to do. So again, we're here trying to map out the journey. That's generally going to be fairly easy because we've done this so many times. There's going to be the marketing and initial reach up. There's going to be sales, onboarding, intake, engagement, whatever you call that process, looking at that. And then we're going to look at the full engagement. Once we start doing our work for clients, what are we doing? How can we break that down into phases? How can we make it easy for clients to understand what our process is and where they are in it? Are they just getting started? Are they almost done? Can we get them focused on what needs to be done? Because then once we break that down, it's easier to see how long does each phase take. Clients are always going to ask, how long is this going to take? And we can tell them, once we break it down into those journey steps, we can tell them how long it's going to take. We can then take individual touch points and refine that further. We know, well, it's going to take a day for you to get onboarded as a client, for us to start sending you videos, for us to send you homework, for us to do our due diligence and review all of your documents. Whatever those touch points look like, we want to start pulling those together. We also want to start making sure we know what's happening, because then once we can start mapping out what each of those touch points are within the larger set of the journey, we can start scripting those out. We know we're going to have phone calls. While we don't know what's going to happen in every one, we can make sure that we treat every phone call the same. And when we are treating every phone call the same in certain ways, just knowing, make sure you use the client's name. Make sure you're saying hello. Are you saying good morning, good evening, or good afternoon? You may not. Ultimately, those are going to be some of the choices you're going to make. But knowing when you have a phone call, it doesn't matter where you are in any part of the client's journey, making sure it's set up to be done in the right way so that it makes it easy for the client. When you have a meeting, one of the things that I always did when we were having meetings in person is if a client's coming in to meet with me, and we're going to be talking for half an hour, 2 hours, not only am I putting a notepad out, if I've got any notes or anything they need to see, we've got copies for everybody we expect to be in the room, and we've got a pen ready and waiting for them. Why? We're anticipating what they're going to need and what is going to make it easier for them to get what they need out of that meeting. Just knowing clients are going to be thinking about these sort of things. We want them to remember it. Let's show them that we've thought about this and we know what it takes to make it easier for them. Because if you just go in there and start, drowning them in your legal information and don't give them any way to make sure they remember it, or you assume that they're going to just, receive all of this knowledge and hold it in their heads, it's asking more than should be reasonably asked of clients. It's not that you can't do that, but again, we're trying to make it easier. And what we're not doing is spending a bunch of money on our red herring products. These aren't over-the-top wow experiences. We don't have fancy drinks ready to go for them or some sort of omelet menu. This is saying have a legal pad and have a pen. I think, you can go and buy the bucket of 50 pens from Office Depot or Office Max or wherever, and regular, unbranded legal pads, and just have them waiting. You shows that you've remembered that clients are coming in and that you've prepared for them to be there. We're not doing anything over the top in terms of, that's not an Instagrammable story where people are going to be like, ooh, look at this fancy ballpoint pen and legal pad. Nobody's going to get wowed by that. But the fact is you're making it easier for clients, and that's the point. So as we think about everything, ultimately, clients are on a journey with us. We are guiding them to solve some certain problem. We want to help them resolve those issues. How can we think about all the touch points that they're going to have with us so that we can make it easier for them? Thanks so much for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.